From the 101 Recap Book 1, Story and Commentary for the Movie equals. People live in a dystopian future where they are referred to as members and are governed by the collective and administration. The majority of diseases have been cured, and there is no longer any crime or violence, but in the process, they also lost their emotional intelligence, and as a result, it is now against the rules to express emotion or interact with other members. When a specific woman is called upon to fulfill her role in society, artificial insemination is used to give birth to children. There is no love or marriage. Everyone is dressed in white, there are no decorations or colors, and nobody has a distinct personality. Their meals are boring as well, and their only pastimes are simple, repetitive activities like figuring out easy puzzles. In order for computers to monitor their daily lives, they also have chips on their arms. Each time they board a train or walk into a building at work, their chip needs to be scanned. Among these people is Silas, who gets up, lets the bed get ready, has a boring breakfast, and then heads to work like everyone else. There are no conversations on the train, and no one speaks at work either. Screens are all around them reminding members to report any abnormal conduct, even something as simple as a slight smile. The illness is known as SOS, or switched-on syndrome, which causes people to regain their feelings, is another topic covered on the screens. Members are urged to visit a physician if they have any symptoms. Silas is an illustrator for a firm named Atmos, thus he spends his days in front of a computer drawing. His artwork stands in stark contrast to the society he inhabits, most likely as a result of the documentary he listens to while creating. The subject of this documentary is The Great War, a time when the collective battled to break away from the peninsula, a chaotic area where feelings are allowed to run wild. There are two designated times during the workday when employees converse with one another. Initially, it happens at project meetings when they may exchange ideas, and Silas pays close attention to what Nia has to say. During lunch, the other occasion, everyone makes sure to maintain sufficient space between them. However, they don't have a very dynamic chat. Instead, they limit their discussion to factual subjects like the coworker who returned from military duty. After work, Silas returns home and observes the arrest of a sick couple by the police. Later on, Silas goes about his boring routine at his apartment, eating a dinner that is made by the AI in the house, finishing another uninteresting problem, and going to bed. Everyone else in the building follows the same procedure. Silas discovers that the ailing couple will be transferred to a defective emotional neuropathy facility, or DN, when he watches the news the following day. Members are once more urged to report any SOS symptoms, whether they be personal or those of their colleagues. An employee later commits self-deletion at work by falling from the roof, which occurs frequently in this culture. The staff members approach the window to examine the body, but nobody is alarmed except for Nia, who makes minuscule movements that Silas notices. He keeps this information to himself, though. The entire Immerse staff then gets together for another meeting. Silas takes use of the opportunity to monitor Nia while everyone is glued to the screen, attempting to determine whether or not she is ill. Ultimately, observing a stunning woman for an extended period of time begins to alter him. Later, when he is at home, Silas is anxious as he eats supper because he keeps thinking about Nia. He even finds it difficult to do his puzzle. During a subsequent work meeting the next day, Silas continues to nod off and needs to be reprimanded. That night, he has a dream in which he is standing on a roof and awakens just before he falls. Since this is the first time he has ever dreamed, he is so lost and confused that he bumps against a wall. When he visits the health facility the next morning after realizing he has a bruise on his forehead, he witnesses a woman sobbing as she watches a film about SOS and its 4 stages of symptoms. When a man named Jonas inquires about Silas's state, Silas disputes being ill. Jonas then clarifies that he is at stage 2. After telling the doctor about the nightmare, Silas visits the doctor again, and this time the test results reveal that he does really have SOS. For a little while, Silas fears that he will be admitted to a DN facility, but the doctor reassures him that a cure is being worked on, so as long as his symptoms don't worsen, he will be okay. Then, when Silas checks his personal computer, he discovers that his profile indicates he has already reached stage 1 SOS. When someone questions Silas about his bruise later at work, he lies and claims he received it at a Tai Chi lesson in order to avoid disclosing his sickness quite yet. His colleague has concerns about him, but to Silas' astonishment, Nia interjects and verifies his account. A bumblebee lands on their table during lunch, and Nia captures it in a glass before releasing it. Silas is fixated on her, staring at her while she describes how peculiar it is that bees can fly. Silas needs to pick up his medication and shades from the health facility after work. He watches a video for SOS members at home, where the person explains that the disorder is genetic in nature and that the only treatment that can avert worsening symptoms is an inhibitor medication. The gene meant to repress emotions is malfunctioning. At work the following day, Silas is constantly experiencing new sensations that divert him from his tasks. He becomes extremely sensitive to light, loses concentration, and experiences depression episodes. When he does get time to draw, it's highly non-traditional. Later, when Silas runs into Nia after a toilet break, they have an extremely awkward chat. After that, Nia doesn't realize Silas is following her until she leaves for her apartment. Silas decides to stop taking the medication after having this encounter. The next day, Silas purposefully trades places with a coworker so he may ask Nia to follow up on his job. Even though Nia notices something is off, she still helps him. His supervisor notices this and makes sure they aren't just chatting for fun. Although Nia gives very insightful criticism, Silas is more focused on observing her face. Later that night, Silas enters the vacant office and uses Nia's computer to listen to her recordings since he is growing increasingly fixated with her. Silas unintentionally spills his drink during the following meeting at work, and when a colleague comes to his aid, his shades are also found. Now that he is forced to acknowledge he has SOS, they choose to remove Silas from the group despite his assurances that he is not contagious. Nia's support for the concept hurts Silas. Silas works in a corner away from the others from that point on. After work, Silas keeps up Nia's pursuit. This time, she spots him and surprises him by coming at him from behind while threatening to report him if he continues. Nia tries to dispute that she also has SOS, but Silas corrects her by saying that she would have reported him sooner if she hadn't been impacted. Nia turns to go, not knowing what to say. The following day, Nia makes an effort to limit her interactions with Silas, and they act as though nothing had happened. But Silas sees that she fidgets a lot with her hand, which supports his opinion. Later, when they're by themselves in the office, Nia runs to the bathroom to hide because the tension is so high. Sia follows her, and as they attempt to make sense of each other's feelings, the two stand awkwardly in the same stall. Silas hesitates for a moment before touching her face and hands, amazed at how wonderful it feels. Nia gives in at last, leaning against him as they experience their first ever hug. Nia says she's been sick for a year as they take in the warm weather. She informs Silas that they are unable to be together since she is really afraid and is awaiting the cure. Although Silas acknowledges this, he can't help but kiss her goodbye before heading out. Even though Nia requested some space, she can't stop thinking about Silas the next day. When they find themselves back alone in the restroom, Silas gives her his full attention and follows her everywhere. They feel the warmth of human contact so closely that they seem to be melting into one another. Sadly, the moment is cut short when someone uses the restroom. Silas leaves the stall by himself to find that it's his manager, who asks if he's considered self-deleting yet. Silas clarifies that he won't give it much thought till later on. When the manager notices that Nia's computer is on their way out, she informs them that there have been allegations of Silas spying on Nia and that he needs to stop if he doesn't want to be reported. After work the following day, Nia waits for Silas in the stall, but he doesn't arrive. They talk about the manager's threat when they later cross paths on a footpath. After Silas says he'll ask to be moved to a different position, Nia quietly exits. She suffers a complete meltdown when she gets to her flat. The next morning, Silas announces his resignation, stating that he must find employment where his condition won't interfere with his ability to do his job duties. Nia will soon be dealing with Silas' replacement, as he begins working at a nature refuge. She ends up carrying his cup back to her apartment, and she isn't managing the situation well because she keeps thinking of Silas whenever she sees it. Her productivity at work also begins to suffer. After a while, Silas runs into Jonas, and at last tells Nia all he's been feeling. Jonas can relate right away because he was once in a relationship with a lady, however sadly that didn't work out. Then Jonas extends an invitation to Silas to join a support group for those with SOS, and Silas accepts with pleasure. The DN facility instills fear in the people there, and Bess reveals to Silas that half of those sent there end up self-deleting while the other half are made to undergo an emotionally taxing treatment. Bess is a medical professional who keeps her SOS a secret in order to support the patients at the hospital. Nia is there when Silas gets home, waiting for her. Silas cradles her to help her relax because she is so agitated and anxious. This innocent touch develops into more, and before long they are engaging in illicit activities together. When it's all over, they talk about love and make a promise to never be apart again because they were so moved by the event. From that point on, they behave as strangers during the day and reunite as lovers at night. They share details of their lives, such as dinners and showers, and embark on secret dates to get to know one another better. Nia quickly gets over her bad attitude and performs better at work. Occasionally, they allow their hands to lightly touch when they cross paths on the street during the day. One day, it seems as though a group of officers announced something very important. The collective has discovered a treatment for SOS. After they both decide that they don't want the cure, Silas brings Nia to the support group so they can break the news to each other that they intend to flee to the peninsula. The pair refuses to change their minds despite the efforts of the others to dissuade them, even after Bess tells them the tale of a man who lost his life attempting. Upon witnessing their intense affection, Jonas offers his assistance and arranges for them to flee within 3 days. When Nia shows up at work the following day, an alarm goes off, and she is taken away by an officer right away. Nia receives some awful news from Silas later on. She is being called in for conception duty. Nia won't be able to go by train, thus she is unable to depart. But Silas has a suggestion: she ought to visit a physician and get tested, as she will lose her eligibility if they discover she has SOS. When Nia's blood is tested the next day at the health center, the doctor is startled to learn that she is pregnant. Pregnancies that happen naturally rank among the worst crimes in our culture. As Nia doesn't show up, Silas is waiting for her at their meeting place and becomes concerned. When he visits the health clinic, he is horrified to learn that Nia is being brought to the DEN facility. She is confined there and made to feel like a pariah because of what she did. As soon as Bess realizes she is there, she calls the others. Returning to Silas, he approaches Jonas for assistance, to which Jonas responds that he and Bess are already working on it, and that he will have to wait. Bess pulls Nia out of her room in the morning to take her to meet with Jonas and the others, using her privilege as a doctor. Bess says that in order to give Nia the identity of the deceased woman, they would swap Nia's corpse for that of a woman who recently self-deleted and implant a new chip in Nia's arm. Nia thanks Bess after getting dressed and feeling better, then she flees, using the new chip to get through the station gates. When the officers block Jonas' group's path to exit, they attempt to use the elevator as a substitute. Sadly, they discover a member who promptly informs on them, leading to their incarceration. When Silas rushes to the DN facility to inquire about Nia, the security tells him that she has passed away. Silas soon learns of Jonas' group being imprisoned. Unable to handle his wounded heart, Silas climbs to the company building's roof and muses of taking his own life. But after much deliberation, he concedes. Nia goes to Silas' apartment in the interim to wait for him, but he doesn't arrive. She eventually grows weary of waiting and visits the sanctuary to look for him, but he's not there either. With nothing else to do, she heads back to Silas' apartment. When night finally comes, Nia hurries to embrace Silas, who hardly seems to notice. When Nia looks at him more closely, she sees that he has taken the medication to treat the SOS, meaning that he only has 5 hours left to experience emotions. As she continues to touch him, Nia tells him to resist the medicine because she is determined to win this, and they decide to flee nevertheless. Ultimately, they nod out together, with her comforting him in the hopes that it will keep him awake. Nia wakes up in the morning by herself in bed. Silas got up early in accordance with his regimen, so he's prepared and ready to go. He says that although he can still recall their love, he no longer feels it. Nevertheless, they depart in unison since Nia is unyielding. Nia fears whether this will work as they head to the station since she feels like there is a vast gulf between them. Nia's concerns grow as they sit quietly on the train, acting as though they had just gotten on it. But when Silas reaches out to touch her hand, hope slowly returns. 2015 A stylish dystopia with a familiar tale. The sterile setting. Takes place in a futuristic society where emotions have been eradicated to maintain peace and stability. Silas and Nia, two seemingly ordinary citizens, experience a glitch in the system and develop emotions for each other. This newfound feeling throws their world into disarray as they grapple with forbidden love and the consequences of individuality. Stylish spectacle. Visually striking, the film boasts a minimalist aesthetic with clean lines, whitewashed sets, and muted tones, perfectly capturing the emotionless society. Less is more. The lack of exposition allows the visuals and performances to tell the story, creating a more immersive and thought-provoking experience. Strong performances. Kristen Stewart and Nicholas Hoult deliver nuanced portrayals of characters struggling to understand and express their newfound emotions. A familiar narrative with room for more. Dystopian déjà vu, the themes of emotional suppression and rebellion against a controlling society have been explored in many films before. Equals doesn't necessarily offer a fresh perspective. Slow burn pacing. The deliberate pacing might feel sluggish for some viewers seeking a more action-oriented story. Unexplored potential. The world-building feels intriguing, but the film doesn't delve deeply enough into the mechanics of the emotionless society or the rebellion hinted at. The price of peace. Equals questions the price of a perfectly peaceful society and the importance of emotional expression, even with its potential downsides. It highlights the human desire for connection and the power of love to defy even the strictest control. Recommendation. Equals is a visually impressive film with a strong central performance, but its familiar storyline and slow pacing might not appeal to everyone. It's a good choice for those who enjoy stylish dystopian dramas and thought-provoking stories about the human condition.